Welcome to Supercharged by AI, a podcast by AI Portland. I am Megan Notarte, co-founder of AI Portland and partner at Cloud4. I'm joined by Nicole Moores, my AI Portland co-founder and product design manager at Driveway. Good morning, Nicole. Once again, we are here. It's early. We have our coffee. And we had, I thought, like a very sassy and fun discussion at last night's event. Last night's event was all about generative images and maintaining creativity and like the importance of creators, even in a time where like machines can make really cool stuff very easily. And so just for those folks who were not present, we had a really cool panel. We had Emily, who is a lawyer, and that was very, very interesting to get her legal perspective on things. Not legal advice,
Not legal
for the
advice.
record.
I was
not
actually
legal advice.
really surprised at how much there was for her to contribute and
Me too.
how interactive the dialogue with her got between her and the audience. That was surprising for me.
Me too. And actually, I loved it.
Yeah.
And then we had two creators. So we had a photographer, Aaron, a brand designer, Carly, and then we had a representative from Getty Images, Carissa, who works on their generative AI implementation. And so we I feel like we did have lots of views into this issue, it did get a little spicy, which was fun, but it wasn't like people were disagreeing. I think there's a lot of passion around
There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of emotion. I feel like the audience really wanted to participate in the conversation. Like there was no holding them back in this event. Like they had questions, they had feelings, they had thoughts, and they had to get them out. And that's why it got a little bit spicy in the room.
Yeah, like everybody wanted to say something. That was super fun, but that's what we're trying to do. So that was like, cool. Yeah, let's have those
Lots of
conversations.
energy.
Yeah. What were some takeaways from your perspective? And you as a designer, I feel like this was like a fun event from your area of expertise, subject matter expertise.
Yeah, I feel like I pretty much resonated with what Carly said, right? That she uses this as ideation, concept sort of building, but maybe you wouldn't use it in a final output, right? To convey sort of like the look, the feel, like what you're going after to clients or other teammates, rather than like, I'm going to get a thing and use it. She also,
like, I'm going to make an image and just give that to the client and be
right,
like, done.
Yeah, totally. That's not, maybe we're not there yet, which I totally agree with. The other thing I think that she said is that there will never not be a need for artists, creators, illustrators, designers, and that we've always sort of operated in this world of trend and people copying each other and like everything sort of looking the same. And that in order to get something truly special, you have to have a craftsman, an artist, someone to produce that for you.
Yeah.
Always been the case, but maybe now it's even more going to be the case with AI.
Yeah, interesting. On the question of use of these type of assets in final deliverables, there was debate. At first, especially coming from the panelists, there was like, Carly talking about in her work, it's just like you said, a matter of process. But when the conversation continued, there definitely was people saying in certain use cases, commercial use cases, or things where we're not talking about fine art.
Yeah.
That there's a place for that.
I think there is. I mean, I look back on my career freelance and all the just like production work I did, just like the projects in which I just had to churn out creative assets. Email, graphics, product graphics, just like the sheer amount of time I spent working on that stuff. Nowadays, I probably would just use AI for those assets and I would move on with life, right? You get into some tricky territory because, like, how do you charge for that then? You know what I mean? And so I think there's interesting things from like a freelance perspective. Oh, this is a perfect opportunity to promote the freelance union event
Oh, yeah,
Hello?
you're on a panel?
Yes, yes. Check that out in May. We'll put
I
the
think you're right.
details in
Yeah,
the show
well,
notes.
yeah, there was some question about ownership, right? And that's what I think you're sort of alluding to, like, well, how do you charge for that? And I mean, every profession that's finding efficiencies with AI are having questions on, like, if you build time and materials and now something is taking you an hour and it would have taken you a day, the value is still the same to the customer. How do
Yeah.
you recoup that?
Curious what your perspective as an agency owner is. Do you just charge the same and be like, "Woo!"
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think in the creative agency world, there's a huge push away from hours based billing anyway,
Mm,
right? It is the holy grail to not bill clients based on just hours worked because and this is a great example of why.
mhm,
Like if I'm really good at my job, let's AI aside, maybe I work very efficiently and
mhm.
you get the same value, but now because I'm better, you're actually paying less and it
Yeah,
shouldn't work that way.
totally.
And AI just like you and I talk about a lot, it kind of puts a finer point or like a magnifying glass on an issue that has already existed, which
Yeah.
is the same thing. So, yes, now if it's an AI tool that's making me better, like, why should I charge you less for that? Like, you should be paying for the value of that actual work.
Mhm.
The ownership stuff is really interesting to me because it's not clear. Right. And Emily, who was on our panel from the legal perspective, was talking about how it's not clear who owns the output of Dolly or Midjourney or
Right.
whatever, that there's like the companies are making some claims on the output. Is that how you understood
That's
it?
how I understood it too, and that we're still kind of in the wild, wild west, and that as creators who may or may not be using these tools, we kinda need to know that, right?
Mhm.
That it might not just be all yours, like, you may have created something with AI and it doesn't 100% belong to you.
Yeah.
Um,
That got us into and this is a little existential, but like, what does it mean to be AI generated? And like, you can laugh at that because I feel like as humans, you think you know, right? But when you think about the places in the process of photography, for example, of where AI is being implemented, is any photo that you take on your phone, for example, are any photos not AI generated? Because every phone has something in it for the camera that's like AI powered in
yeah,
some way. And it's just getting more like I think I want to say it's the Pixel. I'm not sure, but like it has a feature that if you're taking a group shot, it'll take a bunch of photos and then it will composite
yeah,
the one of everyone looking the best or everyone's eyes are open or whatever. And like as a person, I'm gonna be really happy with that feature.
yeah.
But does that mean that one's AI generated?
I mean, kind of, right? My phone, it automatically adjusts the lighting and it changes.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like that in reality.
But was it ever? So it's like, what does it really mean? And I think like that also, I mean, I think it's a slippery slope and it's kind of disingenuous because we do know that we mean the difference between a mid-journey image and one that you like took with your camera, but when you really get into it, where is that line?
Yeah. Or there isn't one, you
Is
know?
there a line?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Obviously, we came to no conclusions. And there will be definitions that come through the legal system at some
From
point.
the Europeans. That's what I
Yeah,
get
they're
around.
really,
We'll just
yeah,
borrow their rules and regulations and apply it to
yeah.
us.
Yeah, which is cool because they're moving pretty quickly and they do seem to be moving pretty thoughtfully.
Mhm.
But here it's going to take years of legislation and the technology is out the door. These definitions are going to come through like in 2 years. What is this even going to be like?
Right.
You know?
Right, right, right.
I wrote down this one quote. This is not really very AI specific, but it was controversial. And if someone in the audience said, almost anything that's great is an accident. And he was talking about art.
Right.
And our panelists were like, they were not in agreement.
I mean, as a designer where you exert control over things, yeah, that's hard to 100% agree with. Maybe not accident. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if I can fully like endorse that, right?
Yeah. I don't know. There is this sort of magic that happens when you're creating, you know? I like wrote it down because I was like, oh, that's an interesting thing to ponder. And I was kind of surprised at the level of response from the panelists, from the audience. And it was like this, like everybody was talking. I was like, oh, wow, we really tapped into something controversial.
Yeah. I mean, I think that
Nobody wants their work to be an accident. I think that's what no one wants to be like, "You made this thing accidentally.
yeah,
Way to go."
totally. Yeah, with art, with design, there's an intentionality there, and I think that gets into the AI stuff. Like if I'm intentionally creating something, I'm exerting some pressure to get a certain outcome or output, like that makes it mine, right?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
not an accident.
Yeah. So it kind of was an extension of that conversation around provenance, and someone in the audience was saying that really what makes and this is more on the fine art side than the commercial side, but like what makes fine art valuable is not just the paint on the canvas in a certain way, but it's the intentionality of the artist and the provenance and the story and all that other stuff that went into creating the
Yeah.
art.
I know this isn't book club, but it does
Yeah.
remind me of the book we just read, right?
Uh-huh.
Uh,
What book? The Great Believers?
The Great Believers. Um,
Mhm.
the whole thread in that book about the art show and putting it together, it wasn't the art pieces, it was extracting the
It was the
story.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah, the story, and one part of that was proving provenance because that's like a thing in the art world, but in proving the provenance increases the value of the piece when you
right.
know what went into it. So, did you think that what the point of that part of our discussion was to say that in whatever tool you use, the thing that gives the art value is not the art itself always, but the intentionality, and therefore AI generated art can have the same value as a Van Gogh?
Yes. I do
Hmm.
think so. I do think
Interesting.
so.
Interesting.
I've sent the website what is it? Nice Aunties to you, where
Yes.
it's
Yes. Yes.
it's wild and a little
It is
bonkers
wild. Yeah.
and a little unsettling, but it's all AI generated art. That's art, right? And, like, that is like, completely intentional and
Modern art. Yeah.
modern art. Yeah, you definitely couldn't claim that that is not art, you know what I mean? And does not belong to the artist.
It's the same thing that we see in AI a lot, where it's like the extremes are clear and the center is not.
Right.
So, yes, if someone's creating new, cool, weird stuff that you could not have done with any other medium, like it's just a new medium.
Mhm.
It's the middle where it becomes muddy, right?
Mhm.
Like, okay, like you're, oh my gosh, the conversation around like using AI generated humans to sell alcohol, and you can't do it because you to sell alcohol you need model releases, so they have to sign a document and they also have to be over the age of 25, and so they're asking like how old are the models in this AI generated image, and you're like they're not real people.
Yeah, that whole conversation was so weird.
Yeah.
Full stop. Like, aren't there rules and regulations around like you can't use things that appeal to young
Yes,
people?
I mean, when they were talking about, like,
I
cartoons or
know.
illustrations, I think there are rules around that, so that's, like, outside of the realm of AI, but,
Yeah.
like, that
Again, a
that
problem that already exists that
already
we
existed. Yeah,
solve for. Yeah.
but also, like, maybe it's better to have AI generated humans in certain cases, so the humans aren't having don't have to do that, but then there's just, like, a whole mess of confusing, weird ethical things to think about in that regard, and, like, the rules have to catch up.
Totally.
So there was a question at the end that I found to be interesting. If you were talking to a high school senior which I happen to do on the regular. You too, not a senior, but a high school
Yeah.
kid. And they wanted to major in art, what would you tell them? What was your takeaway on that?
My takeaway is I think the point that this question was trying to make, it's like, is AI ruining the field of art for future generations?
Mhm.
And I mean, my personal perspective on that is the field of art was already ruined in the sense that, like, it's an incredibly competitive field to get into, even if you're a designer of any sort, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
super competitive, it's hard. And, my kids, I would obviously support them in any endeavor that they wanted to pursue, but I definitely would have a lot of conversation around how difficult it is to be in an art or creative
Yeah.
field. And like, I would not, but that has nothing to do with AI. It would have been the same conversation before.
Yeah. So that was like kind of the takeaways, right? Erin, our photographer on the panel, was like, I would ask them what they want to do after that. If you are an artist who needs to make art and that is your life's purpose, there's conversation around whether you need a degree to do that. It's actually not a question about AI,
No.
like you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like,
Not at all.
do you need a degree to be an artist? Arguably, no. Someone made the point that you don't. And then if you get a degree to be an artist, that doesn't necessarily equate to wealth or
Yeah.
stable income,
Not at
but
all.
that's always been true,
Always. Always.
always been true. We need people who have education in art history, music, even if their end job is not to make art. But that level of thinking and that level of education and experience, they can direct these tools to make things that someone who doesn't have that background cannot do.
100%. For the record, I am not suggesting people shouldn't go to art school. I went to art school. I'm still paying my student loans. I'm 100% bought in to this day. It was a wonderful time. I do believe that you need trained folks who have color theory, composition, typography, who can like describe what they need to get out of AI or help train, based off of these foundational things. People have to learn those somehow. So I'm definitely not poo pooing going to art school.
Yeah.
But yeah, those things, yeah, have nothing to do with AI. But we will need folks who are trained to work with these tools for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe the
I
question
thought it
is
was
go to art school, but also learn AI, right? Like maybe it's
well, yeah. I feel like since you and I are having a lot of these conversations, we're beating the same drums over and over again.
yeah,
But as we talk to different people, they may not have heard us beat this drum. So I'm going to do it again, which is like, yes, AI is going to take some jobs, but it also, like, the people who will do well are the people who learn how to use it and then use that as part of their process, right? What's
totally.
the thing that everyone says? Like, AI is not going to take your job, but a person who knows how to use AI is.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the same thing here,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, 100% agree with you.
Also, like, this whole jobs thing. It comes up in every one of our the whole jobs thing. It makes me sound like it's not a big concept, but it's a huge deal.
Do
I
you
love
wonder
this.
if like the sense, especially in like tech creative fields, if like it's almost heightened, especially here in Portland and I'm sure
Mhm.
everywhere, like the jobs thing is
Yep.
heightened with this tech job apocalypse we're going through.
100%.
So
I
like
mean, but
maybe it wouldn't be like, oh my God, my job, if not everyone wasn't losing their job right now.
are those things unrelated? Is the tech market apocalypse right now? And I don't think it's limited to Portland. I think it is everywhere. Is it because of AI already?
But no one's saying that. No one's
Some
saying
CEOs are.
saying it, but not everyone's
Yeah.
saying it. And then
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is where our podcast gets like conspiracy theory. Like if that like I just my mind can't go there. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah. But I think you're right. Like, yes, if everyone was killing it in their jobs, they'd be like, yeah, let's learn how to use this, right?
yeah,
But the people who are out of work don't know if they're out of work because AI has already had an impact,
yeah,
right? And are worried that they're not going to find something because of it. So I think you're right. It amplifies the worries.
the worry, and that's why
Um,
we're hearing about it every single time.
but I also think every tech revolution has this fear.
Yeah,
And it happens. Tech does replace jobs.
yeah,
You and I were talking about our jobs were not a job in 1980. In 1991,
yeah.
it wasn't a job.
Totally. Yeah, I was talking to my sister about this, and she was like in the working world when the internet came out, and she was like,
Yeah.
it was really similar. Everybody worried, like, is the internet going to replace my job? And, what sort of horrible things are going to be on the internet? And, like, just
They
had
were
like,
not wrong about that.
that's true. But there's lots of wonderful things too. I'm saying all of that just to say, like, there are similarities with any emerging tech that comes out where people freak out and is like, is this the end of my job? And the answer is
Yeah,
sorta, but not
could
really.
could be.
Yeah.
There are some parts of your job, if they can be automated or made more efficient, like, yes, that could be replaced. And depending on the sector that you work in and the job that you do, like, you should be aware there will be jobs that are no longer relevant.
Hmm.
That is true through progress of history. No matter what, we don't have blacksmiths in every town anymore,
Hmm.
right? So that happens, and I understand that fear. I mean, you and I live in that. That could happen to that could happen to our jobs
Hmm.
too. But there will be new jobs that we don't know about yet.
Right.
Like being a web designer, a responsive web designer, that was not a thing that someone in 1990 would have even thought about,
Right.
right? A social media influencer, a social media like SEO kind of marketing person.
So what you're saying is
What
like it's a circle of life of like jobs. Emerging tech comes out, some jobs disappear, but others emerge and replace those jobs.
Yeah, and I think that from what I've read historically, we end up with more jobs than less jobs net,
Mhm.
but they're different, a different distribution. No one knows if like this is the time that that doesn't happen. Of course, that could be,
Mhm.
but history tells us that that isn't what's going to happen.
Mhm.
So, like, I have to live in that world. And it is a more productive place to be.
Totally.
It was like, okay, there's gonna be new things happening. I need to learn about those new things because
Right.
I want to get on that train.
So you're living in what opportunities does this present me with?
Instead of how is this going to end my career?
Yeah.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of Supercharged by AI. Subscribe to get all the latest episodes and check us out at aipdx.info for more information.